Well, just a week ago, former New South Wales Liberal Premier Mike Baird appeared in the Australian newspaper where he said this: "The biggest thing to me is political leaders that don't know what they know is right or what they believe in, and they aren't speaking out." So they don't do what they know is right or what they believe in. Critical of politicians in this day and age who don't speak out for what they believe in. And yet today, as the chairman of Cricket Australia, he's choosing to stay silent after Cricket South Africa sacked the captain of its under-19s team, David Teager, after he expressed support for Israel. Liberal Senator and former Australian Ambassador to Israel, Daver Sharma, joins me now. Welcome to the program. Now, Dave, we try to get a comment from Cricket Australia on this topic on Monday night, and in response, Cricket's, pardon the pun. Now, you wrote to Mike Baird about this. Cricket South Africa said that they had to sack David Teager because they couldn't guarantee his safety because he's Jewish and supports Israel. But you, in your letter, wrote to Mike Baird and asked if this safety threat is true or whether it's just a ruse to sack a Jewish boy for political reasons. Look, we didn't hear back from Cricket Australia. Have you heard anything at all?
I haven't yet, Shari. I know the letter has been received and I've been assured that it will be responded to and they're looking into it, and I take them at their word on that. But it is a very concerning issue, and I'm very glad you've highlighted it. I mean, this is a very talented young man, a South African citizen, a loyal South African citizen who's got the admiration of his teammates, who's been deprived of the captaincy, not the ability to play, but the captaincy for what Cricket South Africa cites as security reasons, but which they seemingly haven't shared, if there are indeed security concerns, with any other nation. Now, I've got concerns firstly for the Australian players, Jewish and non-Jewish, if there are security threats to the tournament, which South Africa is not sharing with us. But if those concerns are not indeed genuine, then I have concerns that cricket is being, corrupted by anti-Semitism in South Africa and politicised in a way that sport should never be politicised.
Yeah, and it's very concerning that we haven't heard a word from Cricket Australia on it. Now, let's return to our top story tonight. I spoke about this at the start of the show. Penny Wong giving in total $46.5 million to Palestinian territories and neighbours in the region. Overnight, she met with the Palestinian leadership, but they, by the way, have no control of Gaza, as you know. And she said she wanted to make sure that our funding wasn't going to be misused for terrorism. David Sharma, what do you think of all the international aid that's flowing into Gaza? Rockets, there's enough fuel for rockets. There's a never-ending supply of rockets that are being fired at Israel. Never-ending supply of weapons. Over the years, enough money to build 500 kilometres worth of tunnels. And yet Gaza is impoverished and there's not enough supplies or money for hospital equipment. So are you concerned that international aid money, including Australian taxpayer dollars, has been or is currently being exploited for terrorism?
I am concerned about how international assistance, which is meant to go towards the people of Gaza, has been hijacked and commandeered by Hamas, and that clearly has happened. I mean, there's no way that Hamas would have been able to build this extensive tunnel network that they've got. There's no way they would have been able to employ the number of people that they have in arms or under arms for them. There's no way they would have been able to manufacture rockets on the scale that they've got unless they subverted some of that aid. And look, I've got no problem. I'm supportive of more humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians, but if the end result is that it ends up in Hamas's pockets first, all we are doing with that assistance is prolonging this conflict or setting the stage for a further round of conflict because we're entrenching Hamas's grip on power. So I think before the international community rushes in and says, let's give more money, we need to be getting the governance right, and we need to be putting in place mechanisms and people to make sure that the money we give, which is intended for the Palestinian people, actually reaches them.
Well, do you think there should be a pause on Australian taxpayer dollars at the moment, given we don't have a presence in Gaza?
Look, absolutely. I don't think we should be giving any more money to the UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, because there is credible allegations that their own aid has been diverted, and credible allegations that some of the curriculum taught in UNRWA schools, some of the hospitals used by UNRWA have been misused by Hamas or commandeered by Hamas. And look, Gaza is largely governless now. I mean, Hamas is still the de facto authority, but obviously they're not running the place. I mean, the simplest way to provide humanitarian assistance is to, fund organisations like the Red Cross that are literally trucking in food and water and essential medical supplies, which has a small chance. It can still be misused by Hamas. Undoubtedly, it will end up feeding and clothing and watering Hamas, but I think that's a price worth paying. But anything beyond addressing the immediate humanitarian concerns, and certainly the millions of dollars the government's announced, I think we really need to wait until we have some sort of political horizon for the resolution of this conflict before we start writing cheques of that size.
Yeah. And you know the region better than most, having been the Australian ambassador to Israel. Now, Labor Industry Minister Ed Husic has said that anti-Israel voices are wrongly being threatened with losing their job. He was asked about the ABC staffers' revolt over the sacking of anti-Israel radio fill-in host Antoinette Lattouf. She was only meant to be there for a 5-day contract. She was there for 3 days, just 2 days she didn't fulfil, and she was still paid for it. But Ed Husic said people who speak their mind shouldn't be sacked for it. Here's what he had to say.
One of the things we value about a democracy is the ability for us to express our opinion and what we think should happen. And people shouldn't feel like if they express their views that in some way, shape or form that there's some sort of, if it's been peaceful and if it conforms to what we think is acceptable in a democratic country, they shouldn't feel like their jobs are on the line as a result of it.
Dave, I mean, of course, political freedom and freedom of speech is important, but if you're working at the ABC, there's clear impartiality rules. I mean, it's in their charter. So why should taxpayers fund voices who are going to spread content that Jews find offensive?
Look, I absolutely agree. I mean, this is a matter about adherence to the ABC Code of Conduct and the ABC's own social media guidelines. Now, I'm sure if this presenter on her private social media channels was calling for Ed Husic to be sacked, you wouldn't hear Ed Husic being so supportive of the right to free expression in a workplace, or if they were uttering anti-Labor slogans. The point is that we shouldn't be picking and choosing the content that journalists are and aren't allowed to express on their social media channels. We should demanding they all adhere to the ABC's guidelines, which is designed to ensure that our publicly funded broadcaster is a source of impartial information, and we can trust the journalists who are presenting us with the news and not running a political agenda. Now, this journalist clearly, with her private social media postings, which were visible to the public, had a political agenda that she was prosecuting, and that has no place in the national broadcaster, regardless of what the content of that was.
All right, Dave Sharma, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.